Hello everyone, my name is Antonis Sideras, my pronouns are they, them. I am an artist that works with performance, video, creative writing, and self-publishing. Today we're going to be learning about graffiti and tagging and how they can be used as tools for self-expression. Now, what we will be covering in today's session is we're going to be looking at the definition of graffiti and tagging. We're going to be looking briefly at the history of graffiti and how it has evolved through the ages. And we're also going to look at how graffiti and tagging are used in different ways and how they've also influenced contemporary fine art. Lastly, we are going to look at how to conceptualize our own signature using graffiti and tagging. All the images that you see in this presentation that do not have a credit are images that I've taken. So let's get started. Today, the materials you're going to be using are included in the screen, and please feel free to use any other materials that you can find throughout your surroundings. And let's see how we get on. So what is graffiti? I borrowed the definition from Cambridge Dictionary, and what I like about it, it describes what it is. It is words or drawings. And what is their nature? They're humorous, they're rude, or they can be political. But most importantly, where are they found? They're found on walls, doors, etc., in public places, which is very important to remember. What is tagging? Tagging is a graffito in the form of an identifying name or symbol, says Merriam-Webster, and a graffito is a singular form of the word graffiti. Now, let's have a look at how graffiti started off throughout history. You can see from the images in these slides that show Cueva de las Manos on the left and Grota del Genovese on the right. And you can see how people in ancient times started recording their presence and their lived experience on walls. And that is the basic principle of graffiti. And if we move on a little bit further on in history, you can see hieroglyphics at the Temple of Horus at Edfu, and also the Viking runic stone with a cross graffiti. And you very much understand how throughout our evolutionary history, we felt the need to document our lived experience, and that in the future became part of our cultural history. Now, graffiti slightly changed in the 20th century. Britannica states that during the 20th century, graffiti in the United States and Europe was largely associated with gangs and their activities. Gangs would mark their territories using graffiti. They would express their individual brand, if you will, but they would also pay respect to their lost members as well. And you roughly saw that around perhaps maybe in the 1970s. Now, later on, graffiti started becoming more popular, and you started hearing the terms street art and public art being associated with graffiti from 1980s onwards. Now that coincides with the emergence of hip-hop culture in New York City, which was brought together by the assemblage of African American, Caribbean American, and Latino American communities in the 1980s, and that really boosted the popularity of graffiti. And then tagging starts to become more popular from the 1990s. Now, graffiti has influenced art from that time period onwards. So you have artists on the left like Jean-Michel Basquiat, and on the right Keith Haring. And if you look at their works, you will see that the fluidity of the lines, the expressive nature of the text and the movements, they really borrow these properties from graffiti, so you can see the influence it has had, but also the colors in Jean-Michel Basquiat's case as well. Now let's look at some more contemporary graffiti artists. I'm sure some of you might have heard of the artist Banksy, or you might have seen his work in London or other areas. But I also wanted to include Catherine Chinatree, who is a friend of mine, and she is an artist that works with graffiti, and she takes that into the gallery space as well. And Catherine and I did our Masters in Fine Art together. So, what made graffiti so influential for culture, for art? If you ask me, I feel that it is the heart and the soul it possesses. Graffiti and its anonymity allow the creator to express themselves and their voice, their opinions. I firmly believe that graffiti is political because it expresses people's hopes and fears, but it also reflects the diversity of populations and their voices. So, for example, you have images, from the left. You have graffiti artists expressing their concerns about LGBTQ plus issues. You have artists stressing the importance of gender inclusivity, but also you see the more political side on the image on the right-hand side. And it's just very interesting to see how graffiti artists respond to changes in their environments. Now, what I wanted to do is I wanted to show you some examples of graffiti that I have observed in real life. Now, the image on the left-hand side comes from a military unit in Cyprus. I'm originally from Limassol, Cyprus, and I was conscripted, so I served in the military for 2 years. And what you see in that image on the left-hand side, you see the numbers 92, 86, 71, and then next to them you see a KPC. What that means is it means ke apopse, which marks how many nights or how many days people have until they're discharged and they can get on with their lives. So you can see that graffiti in that case, it's not particularly skillful or artful, but it almost becomes a little bit more primitive, like the cave paintings that we saw at the beginning of the session. On the right-hand side, you have the image of a graffiti that I walk past every single day when I go to work, and it has the word gay inscripted on it in a very kind of casual way and a very quick way. And you can wonder, is this somebody trying to proclaim their sexual identity, or is it someone stating the fact that they're happy because gay also means happy, and it's just interesting to play with the meaning of words through your work, and that's something you could consider. The image on the left-hand side was taken close to where I live, and you can see that somebody has tagged very quickly the phrase Merry Covidmas, and I feel that that represents the frustration that all of us have shared throughout the pandemic and how COVID has affected every single area of our lives. And my personal favorite, on the right-hand side, you see a graffiti stating that we have to be kind with each other. And I feel that is very important. And it's a beautiful message, if you ask me. So you can see that there's different contexts that graffiti can exist in. So for the practical part of this session, I would like you to create your own tag or graffiti with the materials we talked about in the beginning. I would like you at first to find your voice. Is there something that you wish to express? Is there something that you feel very strongly about? Write that on paper, and I want you to think about how you want to phrase it. For example, I've used the phrase truth hurts, which I feel is very true, that truth is important and it can hurt at times. And then what I want you to do once you have your phrase, I would like you to experiment using whichever materials you find on any surfaces that you have around your house. And you can see from the image at the bottom right that I have experimented with a very quick, fluid kind of motion of my hand using markers to spell out the word truth hurts. And it's not very legible, but that's what gives it the aesthetic qualities of tagging. And I've also experimented with making my own graffiti. So I used different tones of red, and I created my background. I then sketched the word truth on the surface of the page I was working. And then what I did was I took a marker and I made the negative spaces, which are the spaces around the letters, and I colored them black to give it more of a dramatic effect. And then what I did was I took another piece of paper, I colored it green, and I wrote down the word hurt in a different style, and then I collaged it. Now, green and red are complementary colors, so they instantly pop. And the different typography that I have used, it's just it's an interesting assemblage as a final piece, I feel. So I would very much like to see your own interpretations and your own experiments, but let's wrap up the session. So what we've learned today, we've looked at graffiti through the ages, so from ancient times to now, and we've looked at how the meaning of graffiti can change in different contexts, but also how graffiti is seen as a political form of self-expression. I have also included some more resources if you are interested and you want to read more about graffiti. And thank you so much for watching this session, and I cannot wait to see what you have created. Now, this is just some scrap paper that I found around the house, and now it's over to you.